JP, I am so excited to be speaking with you today. You have an incredible book collection. You originally were Aquarius Antiquarian, which is a mouthful, but I love because I'm loving
Hmm.
like the Aquarius water sign of it all. But now you're
Precisely.
Momo Rare Books, much easier to
Yeah.
say. You feel a connection to your dog and your family. Talk to me how this business came about.
Well, it came about rather abruptly in the sense that I had a small collection. My dad has been collecting this stuff for probably about 2.5 years or so, maybe 3 years. And, it was interesting to me because I like history. So I decided that, I'd start my own little collection and see what happens. And then one day my dad says, "Hey, Jamie, why don't you why don't you just see if you can sell it? Maybe this is a business idea." Because I never really thought I'd go into business doing this. It's just something, a hobby, a pastime kind of thing. And I must say, very slow to start with. Very, very slow. I think it took 2 months for my first sale, and then 3 months for it to actually get to a point where I could call it a business. In the sense that I think at that 3 month mark, I was making maybe a sale a week. And considering these things are kind of pricey, it's actually an okay living. So yeah.
Right. So when you started it, how many books did you have to begin with when you first decided to make this a business? What were you working with?
So I had about 5 books of my own, and then there was a few book auctions over here in England. And I decided that, I'll use some of my savings. Why not? Some of these books are very pretty.
Got to
And I
spend
do
money to
have
make money.
precisely. And I do actually have a few books here that I can use as an example. I think this one in particular is quite a heavy one, but it's a very pretty book.
Oh, let's see it.
Let's see it. So this
Wow.
thing is called a Victoria Salter.
Wow. How
And
heavy is that? How heavy is that?
so this one isn't too bad. This is about maybe 3.5, 4 kilos.
All
So
right.
about
So like
eight
the
pounds.
size of like a puppy. Okay.
Yeah, 8 pounds, something like that. And what's interesting about this book is, more importantly, uh, it's it's been illustrated very, very well. It's very beautiful, as it is heavy because it's not normal paper, it's card paper.
Wow.
And it's got these, let's see, let's see if I can
Yeah,
get
back
a
up.
better.
Oh my gosh, this is beautiful. This reminds me of like a classic fairy tale book that you would see in Disney movies when, like Ella Enchanted, when they would read the beautiful Disney. Oh, it's
Precisely.
gorgeous.
Precisely. And, that kind of thing, like I forgot which movie was it. It's one of the Disney films. It might have been Snow White. I don't know why that pops into mind.
Yeah, I'm thinking Snow White too, actually. Like the fairy tale book, yeah.
But yeah,
Or like
like
the a spell book in one of,
yeah, something like that. And it's very beautiful. I saw that on auction. I said, why not? I'll get that. And so I got this. I saw a few for sale in the US. You don't see them in England that much, which is funny because Victoria Salter is named after Queen Victoria. And in the US, they're selling for about $1,500.
wow.
I got this for, I think, 350 pounds, so about what, 450, $400. So yeah, that's for sale. That's one of my earlier books, and I thought that was really interesting and very pretty. And I saw like some of the illustrations in there, and it was very revolutionary for its time. They used special printing process, and so yeah, I thought it was cool.
So how do you
Same with
part
many of
with
the other
books
books.
like that? When you find a book that you love so much, is it hard to part with it? How can you differentiate what you want to sell and what you're like, I really love this, I want to keep it for myself?
So how I differentiate it is there another book like it that I could get that's better?
Mhm.
or do we have something that's more significant on the same lines? And so with this book here, my dad bought another one of it, which has much more historic value, as in it was owned by, I think, the Archbishop of Canterbury, so the head of faith for the English Church.
Wow.
And he signed it as well.
Oh, well, there you
So I
go.
don't
Yeah.
mind parting with that one. Like, I love it. It's beautiful, but we have a better one.
Right. I feel like we're
That's
very
what I'm saying.
similar. That's my philosophy when it comes to shopping. If I can buy a better
Hmm.
outfit, a cuter outfit, a more vintage outfit, I'll take that and I'll sell the
Yeah,
others.
precisely.
And you
So
said at the beginning there was a lot of slow rolling to get a sale going. What were some of the setbacks you faced at the beginning of building this business?
I think some of the big setbacks is um, the best way I can say it is that I didn't have any credibility. You know, I might have some decent stuff for sale, but who knows if I'm just a scammer? That kind of thing.
Right.
No one knows, especially if it's a brand new account made on the 1st of January, and all of a sudden he puts out, a lot of pretty books or old books or whatever like that. And, I haven't bought anything at that point on the account, nothing like that. So what are you supposed to believe? Like, are you really going to spend upwards of like something like anywhere between like $500 to like $3,000 on a book from someone you've never heard of? That's one of the big issues. So, to that point, it is actually probably a smarter idea for me to buy cheaper old books and basically peddle those until I got a little bit of trust, I suppose.
Some credibility to your
Yeah,
account.
precisely.
And how would you remember the first time you gained that credibility? Do you remember, was it word of mouth? Was it a big purchase? What did that look like?
I think I gained that credibility. I want to say it was about my seventh sale.
Lucky number
But
seven.
yeah, lucky number seven. That's true. Or more specifically, my seventh review.
Oh, okay.
That
Okay, yes.
is like a marked difference because I think I made like one sale for like $15 in January, two sales in February around maybe 15 to $40, something like that. And then March is where I sold four things, so sold one thing a week, and is on the seventh review that all of a sudden April, I think I sold about 20 things. It was like that seventh review launched me forward. So
I
yeah,
love
I,
that.
I couldn't say why. It wasn't that interesting of a book, but it's what was necessary.
Right. It did its magic. So you only started in January, only 6 months ago you created this business. But looking back from the start to now, what has been the biggest progression, the biggest success that you feel you've had?
So the biggest success by far, I would say, is was actually an old Bible. It was an old King James Bible from 1614, I want to
Ooh,
say.
so an oldie.
And what was interesting about it was the fact that um, at this point, I didn't really do too much with Bibles. What little Bibles I put up there was kind of like, I want to say esoteric, is the best way I can describe them, as in like they were Welsh or they were Dutch. They weren't English. So I had no idea what was going on, basically. And this was probably my second or third English Bible that I bought. And it was on auction here. And funnily enough, there's a thing with English auctions, they'll say like, I forgot the exact phrase, but basically it means non-refundable. There's no
Okay.
way you can return this. And I just saw estimated early 1600s. Why not put a gamble on it? Not a single other person bid on it. So I got it for like about $350, something like that. And I put it up on my store. It sold the next day. Uh, so when I put it up on my store, I did a bit of research. I couldn't really find anything online. So I brought it to a Bible expert over here in London, and he said, uh, when I spoke to him on the phone, he actually said, do everything you can to give that back to the auction house because if they say it's not refundable, that means they have no idea what it is.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I was just like, well, I might be out 350 pounds or so. But I brought it to him in person, and he said, "Oh, this is actually a first edition King James Bible, which is incredibly rare. They didn't make anything quite like it. And there's also a mistake in this version in the printing. So they basically, if they found the mistake back in those days, they would just burn the Bible and print a correct version. So I basically had a very rare copy of the Bible, and I put that up online literally the next day. I think it sold for about 2,000 pounds from 350 pounds. So that is by far my most successful, like, instant sale
Instant
on this.
sale. That's incredible. And if you think about it, you're actually lucky that you were green to the auction world because if you knew what non-refundable meant to maybe some advanced auctioneers who knew, okay, that means they have no idea what they're talking about. Let's not bid on it. It had zero bids and you got it. And it was the most
Precisely. Precisely. I absolutely lucked out.
Yes.
That's the only way I can describe it.
Is it stressful when you're bidding at these auctions? Like, has there ever been a book that you really wanted and then you're watching the other people come in and you're like, I'm gonna lose it?
Uh, a few times, yes. But also it goes the other way, where I throw out a throwaway bid on a book I didn't really care about either, and then I win that. It goes both ways.
It goes both ways. Exactly. Glass half full. Would you
Yeah.
say that there's better books in the US or across the pond? Where are you finding the best books or all over because it is online?
I think in general, probably the quality of book is better here simply because this was where they were printed. So there's more of them. There was more people taking care of them. They weren't getting damaged from shipping and all of that. So I'd probably say here is the best quality of the books. However, I would say 90% of my customer base is in the US.
Okay.
Like, interestingly enough, English people don't like collecting this stuff, as far as I can tell. Americans do.
That's so cool. Do you specialize in a certain type of book? I know you had said something about Jacobean and Elizabethan, or are you open to all types of books, or did you decide to really hone in on a certain era?
Um, so I would say originally it was Jacobean slash Elizabethan era books. However, I have expanded from there to effectively any book that I think is interesting.
The Bible?
So so yeah, like it goes everywhere from like the early 1500s to I'd say the early 1800s or so. And I got a few examples here. Let's see. How about this one? So I found this online at for I would say a steal, about
Let's see.
£1,000. And this is a 18.
Woo!
Where's my notes on this one? This is a 1894 Pride and Prejudice Peacock edition. And this is, as far as I can tell, I'm not expert on Pride and Prejudice, but this is, as far as I can tell, one of the rarest editions that you can buy. And if you were to look online for this edition, it can range anywhere from like 3 to 4,000 pounds, something like that. And to be fair, it's slightly slanted. I'm guessing there might be a little bit of damage to the spine, but still, for such a rare edition, it's in surprisingly good shape. So like I've expanded from the Jacobian stuff to this. I also have some like poetry and other religious books. A lot of the books tend to be religious, but yeah.
That's so fun. Have you ever found like a play? Would that even be part of a rare book? Like a rare, maybe first edition of, I don't know, like Tennessee Williams or like a Shakespeare, anything like that?
Uh, At this point in time, I wouldn't be able to afford it.
Okay, okay. So it's those are like really expensive, those types of
Yeah, like
finds.
I would say for now, I can probably get maybe let's see, actually, there's a little bookshelf here. Uh, so the best thing I have is some contemporaries
Okay.
of Shakespeare. I have two guys, one called Ben Jonson, and there's another duo called Beaumont and Fletcher. And they were alive around the time of Shakespeare. And I do have I believe, second edition of their stuff. However, Shakespeare himself, there is no way you're gonna get like a first or even a second edition for, I think a first edition you're not gonna find less than like a few 100,000.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
like that's like the top, absolute top tier of book collecting and selling and all of that. So that's, I don't know, maybe 10 years down the line, I'll hope to have one. But yeah.
So what would be the rarest edition up until it becomes like not really worth anything anymore? Like what is like the highest edition these things go to?
The rarest edition by far will be um first editions signed by the author themselves. So if I had a Pride and Prejudice from Jane Austen that she signed, that would be worth, this is off the top of my head. I haven't done actually any research on the price on that type of book, but I would guess at least tens of thousands, like that kind of level of
Right, that's
stuff.
high. But then going to the other side, what would like
Hmm.
when does it become like not worth anything anymore? Is it like a seventh,
Oh right.
a
When it's
10th
not worth,
edition?
um, I would say certainly. I suppose it depends on the book, but certainly once you get to like the 1900s era
Okay.
of the types of types of books, the value plummets quite hard. 1800s, they're usually still eh, there's moderate priced. 1700s earlier, that's when like they keep their and they maintain their price. Obviously, for certain books like I would say like Lord of the Rings, for example, or Dune, or something like that, which were written in the early slash mid 1900s. First editions of those are obviously still very valuable, but yeah.
So are you telling me my R.L. Stein books from 1997 and on are not worth anything?
Well, if he signed it, I might,
I,
I might
I know.
be worth a pretty
No, I'm
penny.
keeping my R.L. Stein books. I love a good R.L. Stein. That's my type of reading.
Oh yeah, what is it? Goosebumps. That was it.
Yes, I'm a
Yeah.
mysteries girl. Like all of my Kindle is mystery. I don't even do romance. I love FBIs. I love any
Hmm.
sort of cop genre. Maybe I'll do a little witch PI series to get some magic in. But your books
Hmm.
are way more elevated. Have you had anyone request something specific? Do people come to you with book requests and then you go out and search?
On occasion,
Okay.
on occasion. However, it's very rare. I think that's for when I am surely like an established entity
But you're getting
in the
there. You are
market.
getting there.
Yeah, slowly but surely, I think
Got
I'm getting there.
incredible books.
Hmm. But I mean, I did get a few requests, although they were kind of the only way I can say is interesting.
Okay.
Specifically from a few people that I know, like third degree removed that I
Okay.
know of. They asked for like specific like Roman missals, Catholic missals and stuff like that. And I'm keeping an eye out for it, but it's kind of yeah, it's kind of just like kind of a little bit obscure items like that
Right.
is what
Might
I'm
not be many
saying.
chances to grab that.
Hmm.
And what would
Yeah.
you say that your books offer to your customers that sets you apart from the average rare book collector?
So I don't know if this sets me apart from the average rare book collector, but I think with a lot of these books, it kind of gives a history of the era. And especially considering a lot of my customers are based in the US. And I'm pretty sure. I'm guessing it counts as like Bible Belt areas. They're asking for these King Jameses and these like something called Geneva Bibles,
Okay.
which is like very Puritan Bibles, is the best way I can explain it. And they're actually quite funny in the sense that you know the story of Adam and Eve. They like sew clothes out of fig leaves or something. Because there's a puritanical Bible, they couldn't say they were naked or they anything like that. So they said they wove fig leaves together to make breeches. You know, just kind of weird things like that.
Right.
But yeah, it gives them a sense of history because you know a lot of these books are quite literally as old, if not older, than the U.S. As a independent state, or even some of them older than we knew the U.S. to have existed, America to existed as a whole. Some of these early books, so it gives a sense of history, I think, to
Yeah.
a lot of my customers.
That is so fascinating. You're right. The books that you present have such a rich history, and you're telling me that like the written word supersedes even the founding of America. That is so cool.
Hmm. I mean, there's I suppose a stage of printing books called incunables. And what's interesting about them is they're like the first generation of printed books. And a lot of them are, I think the deadline for Incunable is about, I need to double check this one, but I want to say right around, like the deadline is 5 years before Columbus arrived in America.
Oh my gosh.
So some of these printed books are literally older than Europeans even knowing America existed, that kind of thing.
That's so cool. You have great books. That's awesome. Do you have a favorite book?
Do I have a favorite book? Uh, I would say I have a book here which I quite like. Um, I couldn't I couldn't say if it's necessarily valuable, and it certainly isn't rare because it's in the title. This is a book of common prayer,
Okay.
which, as you can guess, is quite common. But it's a very pretty little delicate
That's
little book,
adorable. That's so cute.
and it's it's got some brass working on it.
Yes.
It has a little bit of leather working, but most importantly, it has this, which I need to verify the material, but I'm pretty sure it's something called bone plating, which is, as it sounds, it's animal bones, probably from an ox or
Wow.
something like that, maybe elk. Um, and yeah, it's just a very interesting little book. It's very pretty.
That's really pretty.
It's surprisingly well maintained because it's from, let's see, 1865. It's in good condition. It even has the original brass latch to
Oh
keep the
my,
book together. It's hard to see, but yeah,
that's
it still has
so
the original latch as well. I would say this is probably one of my favorite books, and it's also very convenient. It doesn't take up a lot of space. You know, it fits in my hand. It doesn't weigh like 10 kilos because I sold a facsimile of a Bible today, which weighed right around 20 pounds. And I had I had to ship that over to the US. So that was interesting.
oh my God.
Um,
That's an expensive shipping cost right there.
oh yeah. It's right around $65 to ship that over to the US.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
So are we letting our friends and family touch these books? Like, are you like off limits? Nobody's allowed to come into the rare
People
book.
can,
Are they allowed to
oh,
hold them and see them too?
yeah, it's just like a few of these books, especially the older ones, you just need like a it's something that someone made for me was a little like V pillow. And so you can put the book in the middle and open it at about a 45-degree angle. Like that's like the most prepared that I am for like certainly the more fragile books.
Right.
But yeah,
That's so
like
smart.
any it's I don't hide my hoards away like a dragon or anything like that. So yeah.
That's so funny. Has there been a book that you haven't gotten your hands on yet that you're dying to?
Um ooh. there's a few books I would like to get my hands on, which just is not financially available to me, just due to how rare they are. And these would be like Frank Herbert's Dunes first editions, or even first edition Lord of the Rings, things like that. I always wanted to have them, not even to sell, just as a collectible item, but they do run tens of thousands to get. So I think that's for a much later date of
Right.
my business. Another item which would be very cool to have, absolutely, is a singular page from the Gutenberg Bible, which is the first Western printed book ever.
Ooh.
Which I would love to get a singular page because there's no way on earth that you can get like a whole book of it. It's just not possible. Um, and if you do manage to see one for sale, it will be swooped up by some company or something as an investment because it's that rare. So yeah, I would love to get a singular page at one point from that because that can run $120,000, something like that.
Wow. Yeah, we're gonna manifest that. Put that into the universe. That's your next big buy.
Precisely, precisely.
Yes. What
Gonna
advice
be
do you
the
have?
final goal.
Oh, the final goal. I know. You know what? Once you surpass that goal and you're like, okay, I have the book in my hand, then you're going to be on to something else and you're going to be like, wow, I never thought like this would be just one goal out of many. That's awesome.
Mm, absolutely.
I love that. What advice do you have for people looking to start their own rare book collection, maybe get into the sales of it all?
Well, I think the sale of the rare books, starting the collection, and even to just starting a business, I would say it's kind of similar advice, which is just stick to it. That's all I can say. I had some very slow months to start off, and then it picked up all of a sudden. And I'm sure it'll be the same for anyone else who starts this into this business. Um, when it comes to collecting, be prepared for disappointment, like if you're buying from these auctions, because you never know what the price will be, because obviously each auction has like an estimated price, what they think it is. But I would say now I know the market enough to know that the estimated price is usually not telling the truth about it. Is like I think the most egregious one I ever saw was there was a old Bible estimated at about £2,000, something like that, and it's sold for 30,000. That's
Yeah.
the discrepancy that you will deal with collecting of these things is you never know. On Conversely, you will also find a book valued at 5,000 that sells for 800. It's that kind of stick to it. You'll find the deal. You'll find a bargain. You will be ripped off. You will get everything. There's, I guarantee you will get the correct price. You'll overpay and you'll underpay for stuff. That's just the nature of it. So yeah.
Yeah, you'll have the highs of like, I love my job, I love collecting, and then the lows of like, God dang it, I've been ripped off again. But you did say this is a passion of yours, which means a lot because if you start a company, a business from something you love, that passion will fuel you. And you said you had a few months where you weren't making money, but now, you hit number seven, you're making that money, you're selling those books, but you didn't give up, and that's most important.
Yeah, precisely. Like it was, I would dare I say, almost depressing in the sense that I think I probably invested what close to 10 grand starting up the business and everything.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say last month I actually made back the initial investment. So I think I'm lucky in the sense that most businesses don't see black books for the first year.
Right.
So the fact that I got in the first year is miraculous, genuinely. Um, but also it's just like stick to it. That's all I can say. It is depressing at first because you want to be somewhat successful when you start. But at least for me, I was nowhere near somewhat successful. It took a while to get there.
Right. It's a
So
slow haul, but you're doing it.
yeah,
Yeah.
very
What
much
is
so.
next for the business?
So one thing I put up was a website um, I suppose to give legitimacy, but also for easier conversations with customers whenever they arrive to the website. I would say the next step is probably refining the website. It's a little bit, I don't want to say rudimentary or anything, but it's a little basic. I'll be honest. I'm not into web design. I know how to make websites, but I've never been a creative when it comes to aesthetics or anything like that.
Well, the
So
business
that's
is making
probably
money
number
now. You
one
can
on the
hire
list.
someone.
True, I could, but it's just like I know how to do it,
Okay.
so I don't like hiring someone to do it because I know how to do it. Uh,
The vision
I'm
has to come. The
creatively
vision is,
challenged.
yeah. No, I mean, the vision has to come. I'm sure you're going to do so great. Look, all these books you're finding, throw up a few photos, maybe like a dark, moody background. You could do it on Canva. I am sure you could do it.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think for the current objective to streamline the process and make everything look nicer. Um, right now, I'm in the process of upgrading things like my little studio where I take photos of the books. So that's very much an R&D because I've been experimenting with a few different backgrounds. I couldn't say which one is better just yet, but yeah.
I love that. What is one thing you really want your customers to walk away thinking or feeling after purchasing a book from you?
So the first thing I would want them to feel is this is exactly what I paid for. I don't want them to think that I've cheated them. I don't want them to think that this isn't the condition I was promised or something like that. And that's one thing. Perhaps that's also what kind of was the slow buildup was I did have a sim quite a fairly detailed damages section to every listing, saying, where you can find damage and all of that on the books. I think also that lends to the credibility. So that's one thing. And I got a really nice call the other day from, was it Ohio or something? Sold to someone there, and they were pleasantly surprised that I didn't screw them over, basically.
Wow, the rare book trade is a finicky business.
Well, that Bible expert I mentioned on that big sale that I made, he was saying if there's one type of people you can't ever trust on earth, it's a Bible salesman.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Like, so yeah, that's kind of like the image you're dealing with. And thinking about it, if you think about every movie literally ever that has a Bible salesman, they're either sleazy, desperate, or downright like criminal,
Or all three.
or all three. It's that kind of thing that you're basically contending with, which is also why I don't want to do just Bibles, even though I probably made the most money off of them so
People are
far.
loving these
Yeah,
Bibles. Like,
yeah, that's true. So yeah, that's my main hope. Whenever someone buys something from me, is I didn't get screwed over. I got the exact book that I want. That was what they got. So yeah, that's
that
my
is
number one
great.
priority.
Number one priority. And JP, let everyone know where can they find you? Where can they find these incredible books?
So probably the best way to find it would be going straight to the website, which is Momo, so Momo rarebooks.co.uk, all one word there. I think that would be the best place. That's also going to be the best price because I don't have to pay as many fees on my own website. So always nice. Yeah.
I love that. And do we have this on Instagram yet? I feel like you said you have the pillow, you're taking photos. You need to start doing some reels on Instagram. Let the people see the books.
Perhaps that's probably another step in the business is to move it onto social media.
Yes, TikTok.
Um,
Oh my God, Book Talk. You need to get on Book Talk.
Book talk. Oh,
Yes,
that's
that's
a
like a
new.
section of TikTok for all of us readers out there. You would do so
Nice.
well.
All right. That's a good idea.
Another
I think it's a good
suggestion.
way, yeah.
I love it.
Because I've been planning, I've always had it in the back of my mind I should do it.
Yes.
But I don't know why I never did it, but yeah, I
Your
mean,
mind's in the rarity of it all. You're looking for books from the 1700s. You're forgetting about modern technology. We got to
that's
get on
true. That's
that.
true. Dealing with these books, I've slowly like end up become a Luddite, a technological Luddite. But yeah,
So funny. I
no,
know. Thank you so much, JP. It was so great speaking with you.
thanks for having me, Alexandra.